Hi and welcome to ThePrint. I'm Karanjeet Kaur and I'm a journalist and an editor. Today I'd like to read you some excerpts from my column about a new proposed tourist tax in a Goa village and what it means to be a migrant in India's smallest state. Two pieces of news brought me great personal joy last week. The first was watching the live results of a long Lok Sabha election, humbly witnessing a democracy in action, and feeling the euphoria trickling through my veins. The second was a new proposal by Goa's Calangute panchayat to adopt a resolution. The resolution states that tourists are required to either show proof of hotel reservation or pay a tax to gain entry into the village. The tax is meant to finance sanitation efforts in the village and, in all likelihood, discourage tourists from littering the area. Joseph Sequeira, who is the village sarpanch, said that the panchayat had decided to take the step after realizing that groups of tourists, packed in jeeps, buses and other vehicles, arrive at the beach, litter it and just go away without bothering to clean up the place. If approved, the resolution could come into effect as early as October, when Goa's high season really takes off. It will also pave the path for other beaches and villages in Goa to adopt similar measures. Like every resident of Goa, I treat the proposal like a gift from above, even if I fear that it might embolden tourists who are already paying the tax to litter further. Tourism in Goa, which successive state governments cannot stop trumpeting, has a way of wreaking havoc over the lives of its citizens. It isn't just Goa's beaches that are treated with contempt. It's also the riverfronts, the vast paddy fields, and the tiny crumbling bridges that make it to breathless Instagram reels promising travelers the undiscovered and exclusive. Nowhere do the aspirations of the traveling masses and the lives of ordinary Goans collide more violently than on Parra Coconut Road, the road featured in the 2016 film Dear Zindagi. If I ever find myself on the lovely narrow stretch in a bid to get home, I have to fend off hundreds of couples trying to get a completely unique shot against the sunset, young men lying in the middle of the road, teenagers half-assing dangerous tricks on their hired Vespas, young women gesticulating to whatever reel is trending that week, OB vans, giant fans, and people holding aloft light reflectors for wedding photo shoots. Look, honestly, a part of me feels terrible snarking at people who are only out to memorialize their well-earned holiday. But that part is not strong enough to overcome the rage I feel when I have to scream at 40 stubborn people blocking a public road. Versions of the story get repeated with varying levels of menace wherever tourist experiences intersect with resident life. 3 years ago, I fell in love with a river snaking through a tranquil neighborhood of North Goa, far away from the touristy coastal belt. Now, I have to hopscotch over broken beer bottles, flung at the promenade by young men speeding past on noisy bikes. The salon I visit has to explicitly spell out that it's a decent establishment and that visiting customers should refrain from asking for happy endings. Houses in Fontenache put up signs imploring tourists not to put up their feet against the walls of their freshly painted homes. Crisel de Silva Dias wrote that residents around Panjim's Mandavi River are forced to deal with loud casino workers who party on the roads during wee hours, after serving equally loud casino goers through the night. The stereotypes on display in Goa follow Indians around the world. There seems to be a general consensus about our unmitigated awfulness as travelers. Every few months, the internet dunks on us when we are found stealing towels and knickknacks from resorts, or when hotels have to issue special directives to their Indian guests. Beyond hints of criminality, our reputation of being incapable of basic courtesy also precedes us. I'll never forget the Swiss guide briefing us on the eve of an early morning trek at the base of the Matterhorn. He looked me dead in the eye while informing us that the group could not wait for anyone who wasn't on time, or the face of the aghast Vietnamese guide leading a noisy, disinterested group of Indians on the very solemn Cu Chi Tunnels tour. So I empathize entirely with the people of Calangute, who are likely caught in the endless loop of dealing with the aftermath of a day-tripping party. But after everyone has agreed that tourists have ruined Goa over a round of afternoon urak, things begin to get a little fuzzy. Because in Goa, the boundaries between the tourist, the traveller, the settler and the migrant begin to blur. Everyone is an outsider, and often everyone gets painted with the same brush. The resentment against tourists spills over to those who have actually moved to Goa. This includes the very rich Delhi and Bombay walas who own multiple homes and the very poor who build them. Somewhere on that spectrum lie people like us, who've either moved to the state for work or to pursue careers that allow us to be remote. A few years ago, novelist Deepti Kapoor wrote in The Guardian about her experience of leaving after living in Goa for 8 years. Kapoor criticized the rampant mining, the heaps of rubbish piling up in her Tony Asagaon neighborhood, and the uncontrolled construction. All without once examining the role people like us play in these elaborate dramas that we love to complain about. She got rightly dragged for it by her indignant Goan neighbors who questioned why she hadn't even made the slightest effort to assimilate. Now, that discontent is understandable and justified to a large extent. Who can blame local Goans for being upset with the moneyed elite who keep moving into quiet neighborhoods, driving up rental values, and pricing people out of their own land? All of us are implicated in the pillaging of Goa's ecology and biodiversity. Sometimes, though, this rhetoric takes on the nebulous haze of a cultural clash. It borders on what is considered bigotry in other states. North Indians, and this includes Punjabis, UPites, Biharis, are accused of spoiling the pristine culture of Goa by migrating here. It's a pervasive sentiment, and in my experience, aired most often by Goans who themselves have migrated outside the state in search of the same opportunities that brings others here. There's a clear hierarchy of outsiderness at play. Rich Goans bristle at the influx of wealthy North and South Indians. Meanwhile, these affluent non-Goans prefer to distance themselves from the local poor. Poor Goans might tolerate the presence of rich Indians, but they draw a hard line against poor non-Goans encroaching on their territory. Eventually, it's the low-income non-Goans, that is, migrant workers from UP or Bihar or sleepy tourists in minibuses, who don't have the luxury of deciding who they can turn up their noses at. These are the people that are most disadvantaged. Goans are hardly alone in furthering this exclusionary outlook. It's a human trait. If we didn't view everyone through binaries like insiders and outsiders, if we refrain from sitting in judgment over who gets to be a migrant, we'd recognize that the world has always thrived on movement and exchange. I'd like to read you an excerpt from an essay by Pakistani author Mohsin Hamid, published in the National Geographic magazine in 2019. The essay is titled, "In the 21st Century, We're All Migrants." I quote, "We are told not only that movement through geographies can be stopped, but that movement through time can too. That we can return to the past, to a better past, when our country, our race, our religion was truly great. All we must accept is division. The division of humanity into natives and migrants. Such are the dreams of a species defeated by nostalgia, at war with itself, with its migratory nature, and the nature of its relationship to time, screaming in denial of the constant movement that is human life. Understanding that people move to seek a better life, a safer home, a place to belong, or simply a temporary seaside holiday is a radical idea. The proposed tourist tax in Calangute is a step towards holding tourists responsible and accountable for their impact. But it can also be an opportunity to examine the inevitable movement of people with grace and fairness, ensuring that both residents and visitors can coexist harmoniously. except the hordes on Parra Coconut Road, who treat the world like their Instagram backdrop. There's a special place in hell for you lot.